In the dead of winter 2022, a single flickering street lamp cast a sickly yellow glow over the snow-dusted streets of Kharkiv. Natasha Volkov, 23, stood shivering in her threadbare coat, staring at her phone. Another modeling gig canceled, third one this week. War rumors had choked the city's economy, and her dreams of runways in Paris or Milan felt like cruel fantasies now. Natasha thought she'd hit rock bottom when her last paycheck barely covered the rent for her family's crumbling Soviet-era flat. But in the glittering penthouses of Dubai, a man she'd never met was already plotting a revenge so vile it would destroy her body, her future, and everything she held dear. If you're gripped by this story, hit that subscribe button and join our channel to dive deeper into the darkness of true crime. But let's go back to where it all began. Natasha's fingers, numb from the cold, scrolled through her inbox. Spam, bills, and a single cryptic email from an agency she'd never heard of, elite opportunities abroad. It promised a modeling contract in Dubai, high pay, luxury accommodations, a chance to escape the gray despair of Kharkiv. Her mother, Irina, was chopping potatoes in their cramped kitchen, the gas stove sputtering. "You can't trust these things, Natasha," she warned, her voice heavy with years of disappointment. "They promise the world, then leave you with nothing." But Natasha's eyes gleamed with defiance. At 23, she was tired of scraping by, tired of wearing second-hand boots that let the snow soak through, tired of her father's drunken rants about a country falling apart. This was her shot. The agency's contact, a smooth-talking man named Omar, called her the next day. His voice was warm, polished, like he'd rehearsed every word. "You have the look, Natasha. Exotic, fresh. The clients in Dubai will love you." She ignored the unease in her gut. Omar's charm was intoxicating. Within a week, she was on a plane, her mother's tearful warnings echoing in her mind. The flight was her first taste of luxury. A glass of champagne in business class, a stark contrast to the stale bread and tea she'd lived on for months. Dubai greeted her with a blast of desert heat and blinding opulence. Skyscrapers pierced the sky, their glass facades reflecting wealth she could barely comprehend. Her new home was a sleek apartment in a high-rise, shared with 3 other models, 2 from Russia, 1 from Poland. The agency provided everything: designer clothes, a driver, even pocket money for coffee at gilded cafes. Natasha's Instagram filled with selfies against infinity pools and gold-plated sports cars. For the first time, she felt alive, like she was finally someone. But the work wasn't what she'd expected. The modeling gigs were private parties, not photo shoots. Men in pristine white robes and Rolex watches leered at her over flutes of Dom Perignon. She was told to smile, to laugh at their jokes, to let their hands linger on her arm. The other girls seemed unfazed, their eyes glassy with practiced attachment. "Just do what they want," Katia, the Russian model, whispered one night. "It's easier that way." Natasha's stomach churned, but the money kept her quiet. Thousands of dollars wired to her account after every event. She sent half to her mother, who stopped asking questions when the bills started getting paid. One night, a yacht party off Jumeirah Beach, Natasha caught the eye of Sheikh Khaled al-Mansuri. He was older, maybe late 40s, with a sharp jawline and eyes that seemed to see through her. His presence commanded the room. Even the other wealthy men deferred to him. He introduced himself with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, offering her a glass of champagne. "You're different," he said, his voice low, almost predatory, not like the others. Natasha wasn't sure if it was a compliment or a warning, but something about him made her skin prickle. Khaled became a regular at the parties she attended. He'd request her specifically, his gifts escalating from diamond earrings to a Hermes bag worth more than her family's apartment. He spoke of his business empire, oil, real estate, power, and hinted at a personal tragedy, a betrayal that had left him guarded. "I don't trust easily," he told her one night, his fingers brushing her wrist. "But you, Natasha, you might change that." She played along, sensing the danger but drawn to the thrill. She'd grown up with nothing. Now she was sipping champagne with a man who could buy her entire hometown. What Natasha didn't know was that Khaled's interest wasn't random. Months earlier, in a dimly lit office in Moscow, a deal had gone sour. Khaled had partnered with a Russian businessman, Dmitry Volkov, Natasha's estranged uncle. Dmitry had promised lucrative investments, but instead, he'd siphoned millions from Khaled's accounts, disappearing into the chaos of sanctions and war. Khaled's investigators had traced Dmitry's family, landing on Natasha's name. She was the perfect target, vulnerable, ambitious, and completely unaware of her uncle's crimes. Khaled's revenge wasn't about money. It was personal. He wanted Dmitry to suffer through someone he loved. As weeks passed, Natasha's life in Dubai became a gilded cage. The agency controlled her schedule, her phone, even her passport. Khaled's attention grew obsessive. He'd call her at odd hours, demanding she meet him at his private villa or join him on his jet for impromptu trips. His gifts came with strings, subtle at first, then overt. "You owe me your time," he'd say, his tone hardening. One night, after she hesitated to join him for a private dinner, he grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. "Don't forget where you came from, Natasha," he hissed. "I can send you back to that frozen hellhole with nothing." She started noticing other things. The champagne at his parties left her dizzy, her memory foggy. She'd wake up in strange hotel rooms, her clothes disheveled, with no recollection of the night before. Katia brushed off her concerns. "It's just a lifestyle. You'll get used to it." But Natasha's fear grew. She confided in Lena, the Polish model, who admitted she'd been to a doctor after similar blackouts. "Get tested," Lena whispered. "Something's not right." Natasha's world was unraveling, but she couldn't see the full picture yet. Khaled's plan was already in motion, a cruel trap set to destroy her from the inside out. Back in Kharkiv, her mother noticed the money transfers slowing. Natasha's calls became sporadic, her voice strained. "I'm fine, Mama," she'd say, but her words felt hollow. Irina's maternal instinct screamed that something was wrong, but Natasha was too far away, lost in a city that glittered like gold but hid a darkness she'd never imagined. The winter of 2022 had been harsh in Kharkiv, but for Natasha, the real storm was brewing thousands of miles away, in a place where luxury masked vengeance, and every smile hid a lie. Natasha Volkov woke to the hum of air conditioning in her Dubai high-rise apartment, the desert sun slicing through the blinds. Her head throbbed, a dull ache that had become too familiar. She reached for her phone. 3 a.m. text from Khaled, demanding she meet him at his villa tonight. "Wear the red dress," the message read, followed by a photo of her from last week's yacht party, laughing with a glass of champagne, her eyes unfocused. She didn't remember the moment. The apartment was quiet, the other models still asleep or out at gigs. Natasha splashed cold water on her face, staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Dark circles framed her eyes, her once vibrant skin now pale, almost translucent. She'd lost weight, her collarbones sharp under the thin strap of her nightgown. Something was wrong. She felt in her bones, but the money kept her tethered to this life. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, pleading with her to come home, but Kharkiv offered nothing but cold and despair. Here, at least, she had a chance. She spent the morning at a fitting arranged by Omar, the agency's slick-talking manager. The boutique was a maze of mirrors and silk, staffed by women who spoke in hushed tones. The red dress Khaled wanted clung to her body, its fabric heavy with sequins. "Perfect," Omar said, his eyes lingering too long. "The Sheikh will be pleased." Natasha forced a smile, her stomach twisting. She'd learned to read Omar's silences. Every word he spoke carried a warning. That evening, a black SUV whisked her to Khaled's villa, a sprawling fortress of glass and marble perched on the edge of the desert. Palm trees swayed in the courtyard, their shadows dancing under floodlights. Inside, the air was thick with oud and cigar smoke. Khaled greeted her with his usual charm, his white though pristine, a gold watch glinting on his wrist. "You look like a vision," he said, handing her a drink. She hesitated, the memory of her blackouts flashing through her mind. "It's just champagne," he assured her, his smile sharp. She sipped, the bubbles bitter on her tongue. The night blurred. Khaled's guests, men in tailored suits and women draped in jewels, spoke in languages Natasha couldn't follow. She played her part, laughing at their stories, letting their hands graze her arm. But Khaled's eyes never left her. He pulled her aside to a private terrace, the city's skyline glittering below. "You're special, Natasha," he said, his voice low. "I could give you everything. More than you ever dreamed of in that frozen wasteland you came from." His fingers brushed her cheek, and she flinched, a reflex she couldn't hide. His expression darkened for a split second before the smile returned. "Don't be ungrateful," he murmured. Back at the apartment, Natasha couldn't sleep. Her body ached, her joints stiff like she'd run a marathon. She scrolled through her phone, finding more photos she didn't remember taking. Her in a nightclub, her on a yacht, her in Khaled's villa, always with that same dazed look. She called Lena, the Polish model, who answered in a whisper. "I got tested," Lena said, her voice trembling. "Something's not right with me, Natasha. You need to see a doctor. Now." Natasha's heart pounded. She'd been avoiding the truth, but Lena's words cracked something open. The next day, she slipped away to a private clinic, using cash to avoid the agency's prying eyes. The doctor, a kind-eyed woman from India, asked questions Natasha couldn't fully answer. "Any unusual symptoms? Fatigue? Night sweats?" Natasha nodded, her throat tight. The doctor drew blood, her movements gentle but clinical. "We'll have results in a few days," she said. "Try to rest." Rest was impossible. Natasha's mind raced with images of Khaled's villa, his gifts, his hands. She remembered a night 2 weeks ago, waking in his guest suite with no memory of how she got there. Her dress unzipped, a needle mark on her arm she'd dismissed as a bruise. She confronted Omar at the agency's office, a sleek glass tower overlooking the marina. "What's happening to me?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "Why can't I remember anything?" Omar leaned back in his chair, his smile patronizing. "You're stressed, Natasha. This life, it's intense. Maybe you're drinking too much." She slammed her hand on his desk. "I'm not imagining this." His eyes narrowed, and for a moment, she saw something cold, calculating. "Be careful," he said softly. "You don't want to upset the wrong people." That night, Khaled summoned her again. The villa was quieter this time, just a handful of men in a private lounge. Khaled was different, tense, his charm replaced by a restless energy. He poured her a drink, watching her closely. "You've been asking questions," he said, his tone casual but laced with menace. "I don't like that." Natasha's pulse spiked. She set the glass down, untouched. "I just want to know what's going on," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. He stepped closer, his breath hot on her face. "You're mine, Natasha. Don't forget that." She left the villa at dawn, her hands trembling as she booked a ride back to the apartment. In her room, she found a small package on her bed, a velvet box with a diamond bracelet and a note. "For my favorite star. Stay loyal. K." She threw it across the room, the bracelet skittering under the dresser. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Leave Dubai. Now." It was unsigned, but the area code was Russian. Her uncle Dmitri, maybe? She hadn't spoken to him in years, not since he'd vanished after some shady business deal. Natasha called her mother, her voice breaking as she admitted she was scared. "Come home," Irina begged. "Whatever's happening, we'll figure out together." But Natasha couldn't go back, not yet. She needed answers. She needed to know why Khaled's attention felt like a noose tightening around her neck. In Kharkiv, Irina sat in their dim kitchen, clutching a rosary, praying for her daughter's safety. She didn't know that thousands of miles away, Khaled was finalizing a plan that would shatter their family forever. His revenge against Dmitry Volkov was no longer just about money. It was about power, about making someone suffer as he had. Natasha was the perfect pawn, and he was playing a game she didn't even know she was in. Natasha Volkov sat on the edge of her bed in the Dubai high-rise, clutching the clinic's test results. The paper trembled in her hands, the words blurring through tears. HIV positive. The doctor's voice from yesterday echoed in her mind. Calm, clinical, devastating. "It's manageable with treatment, but you need to start immediately." Natasha's breath hitched. She was 23, and her body, once her ticket out of Kharkiv's gray despair, was now a battlefield. The apartment was silent, the other models out at another glittering party she'd skipped. Her phone buzzed. Khaled again, demanding her presence at his villa. She ignored it, her mind racing. The needle marks she'd noticed weeks ago, the blackouts, the drinks that left her dizzy. It wasn't stress or too much champagne. It was deliberate. Someone had done this to her. She replayed every moment with Khaled al-Mansuri. His obsessive attention, his cryptic warnings, the way he watched her like a predator studying prey. The diamond bracelet still lay under the dresser where she'd thrown it, its velvet box a mocking reminder of his control. She thought of the anonymous text from the Russian number. Leave Dubai. Now, it had to be connected. Her uncle Dmitri, a man she barely knew, was the only link to Russia. Had he crossed Khaled? Was she paying for his sins? Natasha's fear hardened into resolve. She needed answers. She slipped out of the apartment, avoiding the agency's driver, and took a cab to the clinic. The doctor, Dr. Priya Sharma, was still there, her face softening with pity when she saw Natasha. I need to know how this happened, Natasha said, her voice raw. Dr. Sharma hesitated, glancing at the door. I shouldn't say this, but you're not the first. Another girl came here last year. Same symptoms, same story, model, private parties, powerful men. She didn't make it. Natasha's stomach dropped. Who was she? Dr. Sharma shook her head. I can't say. But be careful. These men, they don't forgive betrayal. Back at the apartment, Natasha dug through her things, searching for clues. She found a burner phone tucked in a pocket of the red dress Khaled had given her. A cheap model, not hers. It had one contact, K. Her hands shook as she powered it on. A single text thread appeared, dated weeks ago, between K and an unknown number. She's perfect. Dimitri's niece. He'll suffer when she's gone. The reply. Make it slow. He needs to feel it. Natasha's blood ran cold. Khaled wasn't just toying with her. He was destroying her, piece by piece, to hurt someone else. She called Lena, the Polish model, who answered in a panic. Natasha, where are you? Omar's been asking about you. He knows you went to the clinic. Natasha's heart raced. Lena, they did this to me. Khaled, he infected me. On purpose. There was a long pause. Oh God, Lena whispered. I heard rumors girls disappearing after crossing him. You need to leave, Natasha. Tonight. But leaving wasn't simple. The agency had her passport, and Khaled's reach seemed endless. She remembered his villa, the armed guards, the cameras. She was trapped in a city that sparkled like a jewel but felt like a prison. Desperate, she texted the Russian number from the burner phone. Who are you? Why is Khaled doing this? No reply came, but her phone lit up with a call from Khaled himself. She let it ring, her pulse hammering. When it stopped, a voicemail appeared. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Natasha. Come to the villa. We'll talk. His voice was smooth, but the threat was clear. She didn't go. Instead, she packed a small bag, cash, a change of clothes, a cheap wig she'd bought for a photo shoot. She needed to get to the Russian embassy, her only hope of escaping Dubai without a passport. But as she stepped into the hallway, Omar was there, leaning against the wall, his smile cold. Going somewhere? He asked, blocking her path. Khaled's worried about you. Says you're not yourself. Natasha's mouth went dry. She backed away, clutching her bag. I'm fine, Sheikh. Omar stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. You don't look fine. Let's take a drive. The elevator ride was suffocating. Omar's driver waited outside, the black SUV idling like a predator. Natasha's mind raced for an escape. She remembered a fire exit at the end of the hall, but Omar's hand was on her arm, guiding her forward. Don't make a scene, he muttered. You know how this works. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another text from the Russian number. Don't trust Omar. Run. She didn't hesitate. She yanked her arm free and bolted for the fire exit, her sneakers pounding against the marble floor. Omar shouted after her, but she didn't look back. The stairwell was a blur of concrete and steel. She stumbled down flights, her breath ragged, until she burst into an alley behind the building. The Dubai night was humid, the air thick with the scent of diesel and jasmine. She pulled on the wig, her hands shaking, and flagged a cab. Russian embassy, she gasped, slamming the door. The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror, but said nothing. At the embassy, a tired clerk listened to her story with skepticism. No passport, no record of your uncle Dmitry Volkov, he said, tapping at his computer. You're sure he's in Dubai? Natasha's frustration boiled over. I don't know where he is, but someone's trying to kill me. The clerk raised an eyebrow, but something in her desperation made him pause. He handed her a form. "Fill this out. We'll see what we can do." As she waited, her phone buzzed again. Khaled's number. She didn't answer, but the voicemail was chilling. "You can't run, Natasha. I know where you are." She deleted it, her hands trembling. The embassy felt safe, but she knew it was temporary. Khaled's wealth and connections could reach anywhere. She needed to find Dmitry to understand why she was a target. Back in Kharkiv, Irina Volkov sat by the phone, her rosary worn from hours of prayer. Natasha's last call had been frantic, her voice breaking with fear. Irina called her brother Dmitry's old number, one she hadn't dialed in years. It went a voicemail, but she left a message. "Dmitry, if you're alive, Natasha's in trouble. Please help her." Unbeknownst to Natasha, Khaled was steps ahead. In his villa, he sat with a glass of scotch, staring at a photo of Dmitry Volkov from a Moscow business deal gone wrong. The betrayal had cost him millions, but the real wound was pride. Natasha was his revenge, a slow, cruel destruction meant to break Dmitry's heart. And he wasn't done yet. Natasha Volkov crouched in the back of a taxi, the Dubai skyline blurring past as her heart hammered. The Russian embassy had been a dead end. The clerk's indifference, the endless forms, Khaled's chilling voicemail. "I know where you are." She'd left the embassy an hour ago, slipping into the night with her cheap wig and a stolen hoodie from Lena's closet. Her phone was off, battery removed, but she felt Khaled's eyes everywhere, on the neon-lit streets, in the reflections of glass towers. The cab dropped her at a rundown motel near Dera, the kind of place tourists never saw. She paid in cash, her hands shaking as she handed over crumpled dirhams. The room smelled of stale smoke and bleach, the walls stained with years of neglect. She locked the door, wedged a chair under the handle, and sank to the floor. The clinic's test results burned in her mind. HIV positive. Khaled had done this, deliberately, cruelly. The burner phone's texts haunted her. "She's perfect. Dmitry's niece. He'll suffer when she's gone." Her uncle Dmitry, a ghost from her childhood, was the key. But where was he? She powered on the burner phone, praying for a signal. One new message from the Russian number. "Meet me at Al-Mamzar Beach, 2 a.m. Come alone." No signature, but it had to be Dmitry. She glanced at the clock, 11:47 p.m. Her body ached, a feverish sweat clinging to her skin, but she couldn't stay still. She needed answers, needed to know why her life was collateral in a game she didn't understand. At Al-Mamzar, the beach was deserted, the waves a low rumble under the moonlight. Natasha huddled in her hoodie, the wig itching against her scalp. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, gaunt, with a face she barely recognized. Dmitry Volkov, her uncle, looked older than his 45 years, his eyes sunken, his coat tattered. "Natasha," he rasped, his Russian accent thick. "You shouldn't be here." "Why is Khaled after me?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "What did you do?" Dmitry's gaze darted to the darkness, as if expecting an ambush. "I took money from him," he admitted. "Million. A deal in Moscow. Oil contracts. Fake promises. I thought I'd disappeared. I didn't know he'd find you." Natasha's fists clenched. "He poisoned me, Dmitry. HIV. Because of you." His face crumpled, a mix of guilt and fear. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I tried to warn you." Their reunion was cut short. Headlights flashed, tires crunching on gravel. Dmitry grabbed her arm. "Run." They sprinted toward the dunes, but two men in black suits were faster, their footsteps heavy in the sand. Natasha tripped, her knees sinking into the cold beach. Dmitry pulled her up, but a fist caught him in the jaw, sending him sprawling. "Khaled wants a word." One of the men growled, yanking Natasha to her feet. They were driven to a warehouse on the city's edge, a cavernous space lit by flickering fluorescence. Khaled waited inside, his white thobe pristine against the grime. His smile was cold, triumphant. "You're a hard woman to find, Natasha," he said, circling her like a shark. Dmitry was shoved to his knees beside her, blood trickling from his lip. "And you, Dmitry, thought you could hide forever?" Khaled's voice was calm, but his eyes burned with rage. "You stole from me," he said to Dmitry. "My money, my trust. So I took something from you. He turned to Natasha, his gaze piercing. Your niece was perfect, beautiful, desperate, disposable. Natasha's stomach churned. You're a monster, she spat. Khaled laughed, a hollow sound. Monsters are made, not born. Your uncle taught me that. He gestured to a table where a syringe glinted under the light. Natasha's breath caught, memories of her blackouts flashing. Drinks spiked, needles hidden. You didn't just get sick, Khaled said, his voice low. I made sure of it. Every party, every glass of champagne. Slow, deliberate. Dmitri will watch you fade, knowing it's his fault. Dmitri lunged at Khaled, but the guards pinned him down. Leave her alone, he shouted, his voice breaking. Khaled ignored him, stepping closer to Natasha. You could have been my star, he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She recoiled, her skin crawling. I'd rather die, she hissed. His smile faded. That could be arranged. The guards dragged them to a back room, locking them in a windowless cell. Natasha's fever was worsening, her body trembling with exhaustion. Dmitri sat against the wall, his head in his hands. I thought I was protecting you by staying away, he said. I was wrong. Natasha glared at him. You destroyed my life. But even as she said it, she saw the pain in his eyes, a man broken by his own choices. Hours passed, the silence heavy. Natasha's mind raced for a way out. She remembered Lena's warning about girls disappearing, Dr. Sharma's hint about others like her. She wasn't the first victim, but she refused to be the last. Using a loose nail from the floor, she scratched at the lock, her fingers raw. Dmitri watched, skeptical but silent. You're wasting your strength, he muttered. Then help me, she snapped. The lock gave way just as footsteps echoed outside. Natasha grabbed Dmitri, pulling him through the door into a maze of crates. They hid, holding their breath as guards swept the warehouse. Her phone, still in her pocket, vibrated. A text from Lena. I told the police. Hold on. Natasha's heart leapt. Help was coming, but would it be too late? Outside, the Dubai dawn painted the sky in shades of gold, a cruel contrast to the darkness closing in. Khaled's men were closing the net, and Natasha's strength was fading. In Kharkiv, Irina Volkov clutched her rosary, unaware that her daughter was fighting for her life in a city that promised dreams but delivered nightmares. Natasha Volkov's breath was shallow, her body burning with fever as she and Dmitri crouched behind a stack of crates in the Dubai warehouse. The air was thick with dust and the tang of rusted metal, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Her fingers, raw from prying open the cell's lock, clutched Dmitri's sleeve. His face was pale, bruised from the guard's blows, but his eyes held a flicker of defiance. Outside, the faint wail of sirens cut through the dawn, a lifeline, maybe, if they could survive long enough. Lena's text, I told the police. Hold on, was their only hope, but Khaled's men were closing in, their footsteps echoing like a death knell. Natasha's vision blurred, her strength fading. The HIV diagnosis weighed on her, a cruel reminder of Khaled's vengeance. She whispered to Dmitri, if we don't make it, tell Mama I tried. He shook his head, his voice hoarse. We're getting out. Fur. But the truth hung between them. Dmitri's betrayal of Khaled had set this nightmare in motion, and Natasha was paying the price. A guard's shadow loomed nearby, his radio crackling. Natasha's heart pounded as she spotted a fire exit across the warehouse, its red sign glowing faintly. We move now, she hissed. They darted from crate to crate, her legs trembling, Dmitri half dragging her. A shout rang out. One of the guards had seen them. Natasha pushed forward, adrenaline drowning her pain. They reached the exit, but the door was chained. Dmitri cursed, kicking at it, the metal rattling but holding firm. Behind them, Khaled's voice sliced through the chaos. Enough running, Natasha. He stepped into view, flanked by two guards, his white though pristine despite the grime. His eyes glinted with a mix of fury and satisfaction. You're stronger than I thought, he said, his tone almost admiring. But it changes nothing. Dmitri's debt is paid in your suffering. Natasha glared at him, her voice steady despite her fear. You're not a god, Khaled. You're just a coward hiding behind money. His smile faltered, a crack in his polished facade. The sirens grew louder, red and blue lights flashing through the warehouse windows. Khaled's composure slipped. "Take them," he snapped to the guards. But before they could move, Dmitri lunged, tackling one to the ground. "Go," he shouted to Natasha. She hesitated, then grabbed a metal pipe from a nearby crate and swung it at the second guard, catching him in the knee. He crumpled, cursing. Natasha turned to Khaled, pipe raised, but he was faster, drawing a sleek pistol from beneath his thobe. "Don't," he warned, aiming at her chest. The warehouse doors burst open, Dubai police flooding in, their shouts drowning out the chaos. Khaled froze, his gun still trained on Natasha. "Drop it," an officer barked, his weapon raised. For a moment, Khaled's eyes locked with Natasha's, a silent promise of unfinished business. Then he lowered the gun, his hands rising in surrender. The police swarmed, cuffing Khaled and his guards. Dmitri, bloodied but alive, was pulled to his feet. Natasha collapsed against a crate, her body giving out as medics rushed to her side. At the hospital, Natasha lay in a sterile bed, and 4 dripping medication into her arm. The fever had broken, but her future was uncertain. Dr. Sharma, the kind-eyed doctor from the clinic, sat with her. "You're stable for now," she said. "Treatment can manage the virus, but you'll need to keep fighting." Natasha nodded, tears stinging her eyes. She thought of her mother, Irina, waiting in Kharkiv, unaware of the nightmare her daughter had survived. Dmitri faced his own reckoning. His confession to the police about the stolen millions, the Moscow deal, his years in hiding, unraveled Khaled's empire. The authorities uncovered a network of exploitation. Models lured to Dubai, drugged, manipulated, some never seen again. Khaled's wealth couldn't shield him from the evidence. Burner phones, medical records, witness testimonies from Lena and others. He was charged with human trafficking, attempted murder, and a litany of other crimes. Natasha returned to Kharkiv months later, her body frail, but her spirit unbroken. Irina met her at the airport, sobbing as she held her daughter. The Soviet-era apartment felt smaller now, but it was home. Dmitri, facing trial in Russia, sent letters begging for forgiveness. Natasha didn't reply. She focused on rebuilding, therapy, medication, small modeling jobs that didn't demand her soul. Her Instagram, once filled with Dubai's glitz, now showed quiet moments. Snow falling outside her window, her mother's borscht simmering on the stove. Khaled's trial made headlines, a scandal that rocked Dubai's elite. Natasha's testimony, delivered via video from Kharkiv, was damning. She spoke of the parties, the blackouts, the syringe. The courtroom gasped when she revealed the burner phone's texts, exposing Khaled's calculated revenge. He was sentenced to life, his empire dismantled, but Natasha knew no verdict could erase what he'd done. In Kharkiv, Irina prayed every night, her rosary worn thin. Natasha, once a dreamer chasing runways, now found purpose in speaking out. She connected with other survivors, sharing her story to warn girls tempted by promises of wealth abroad. The winter of 2022 had nearly destroyed her, but it also forged her into something stronger, a woman who'd faced a monster and lived to tell the tale.